Distinguished guests, members of faculty, and my fellow future managers, a very good afternoon to all. Welcome to the third day of Conventus 2016, the annual management conclave of International Management Institute, New Delhi. I, Dipsha Ghosh, and my co-compare, Sarthak Sharma, will take you through this session of the Entrepreneurship Cell of IMI New Delhi. This year, Conventus is structured around the theme Transforming Corporate India, Transcending Innovation Towards Strategic Sustenance. India today is in uncharted waters with never-seen-before growth in business world, and with the increasing number of startups, SBUs, and subsidiaries adding to the burgeoning number of businesses in the country. Innovation is no longer sufficient for any business to survive, let alone to be able to thrive. Hence, corporate India needs to strategize its vision for the future with sustenance in mind. With the multitude of companies now offering the same product, which earlier offered by just a few, it's understandable that the life cycle has considerably reduced. However, this should not be taken as an excuse to give up, rather as a challenge to overcome. All that needs to be done is to strategize the corporate world in whichever way it suits businesses, such that they transcend beyond innovation and enter into the realm of strategic sustenance. Hence, industries should prepare for the long-term survival in today's fast-changing and constantly evolving market space. Before we proceed further into the session, let us have a look at the Conventus video.
The topic for discussion in this session is Sustainability of Innovation, a new challenge for Startup India. The continued sustainability of a startup depends on management of the present with an imaginative vision for the future. Optimizing established policies and processes in a faster, cost-efficient, and responsive manner is essential for the success in near future. For continuity in a longer run, innovation is absolutely essential to change a vision into strategy. To sustain short-term and long-term futures, the emphasis has to shift to and fro between the sustainability of the present practices to sustainability of innovation, much like a pendulum. Startup India, an initiative to promote innovation, has simplified startup processes like never before. From easier registrations to faster funding, being an entrepreneur was never easier. The time has come for India to occupy world center stage and display the talent of its visionary minds. Hence, sustaining the process of innovation is inevitable. In the light of the main theme of Conventus 2016, the Entrepreneurship Cell wishes to discuss how startups in India would counter the challenge of sustaining their innovations in the dynamic environment of today. To provide us more insights into this topic, we are honored to have four very eminent personalities amongst us: Mr. Madhup Agarwal, Mr. Rishabh Malik, Mr. Rohit Sadda, and Mr. Samirendra Chatterjee. To give us more information on today's session, I would like to call upon Minali and Raj from the organizing club to make a brief presentation on the session.
Good afternoon, eminent speakers, distinguished guests, esteemed faculty members, and my dear future managers. We are all here for the Entrepreneurship Summit as a part of Conventus 16, and the topic for today's discussion is Sustainability of Innovation, a new challenge for Startup India. Before we start with the presentation, let's have a look at the video of Entrepreneurship Summit.
The best way to predict the future is to invent it. Today, as we celebrate the World Entrepreneurship Day, people around the globe are doing just that. Innovate, invent the future. In this fast-paced, technology-backed world of ours, innovative ideas and solutions sprout on a daily basis. There is hardly a day without a new innovation. The pace in which the changes happen is exponential. India is expected and definitely is a key player in this crucial juncture in innovation. The urge for excellence and to come up with new ideas is evident from the recent survey conducted by Economic Times, in which every 1 out of 9 IIM graduates opts to work for a startup or begin their new venture. According to NASSCOM, around 11,500 startups will come up in India by 2020, creating a plethora of opportunities for the young entrepreneurs. India, being the third largest ecosystem in the world for startups, has declared 2010 and 2010 to 2020 as the decade of innovation and also established National Innovation Council. The government, through its Atal Innovation Mission, has announced many schemes that motivates young entrepreneurs on self-employment and talent utilization.
In spite of all the efforts by the entrepreneurs and the government, the Forbes rating shows that more than 90% of startups fail. What is the reason behind this? It's the VUCA times that is making it difficult for the startups to sustain. But still, employees want to be employers. The drive for starting their own dream venture is not affected even after knowing that the success rate is only 10%. Unlike the West, India does not have an adequate number of angel investors and venture capitalists who can fuel the growth of the country's thriving startup ecosystem and support the budding entrepreneurs. Mainly, investors are afraid because there's a risk of failure and also there's a lack of policy. Professional networking isn't a dying strategy. It's a necessary part of business development. From validating an idea to finding potential partners, building the right relationships can definitely help a startup to get off the ground. Entrepreneurs are on a mission to build the future, and inevitably, they're breaking many rules in order to create their own. Choosing the right business model for your startup is an important challenge.
As an aspiring company builder, you always find yourself in situations where you don't know what you don't know. But you have to stay in motion to make decisions. Without a savvy guide in the form of a mentor, you may wind up making crucial early mistakes. Recruiting great mentors is a challenge in itself. To say that startup landscape is competitive is in itself is an understatement. Every business is competitive, but the world of startups, high stakes and even higher potential for disruptive growth and success makes competition particularly fierce. Honorable Prime Minister Mr. Narendra Modi on 15th August 2015 announced Startup India, Stand Up India to promote bank financing for startups and offer incentives to boost entrepreneurship and job creation. The plan proposes relaxed norms of public procurement for startups. At present, central government, state government, and PSUs have to mandatorily procure at least 20% from micro, small, and medium enterprise. With a view to stimulate the development of startups in India, the profits of startup initiatives are exempted from income tax for the period of first 3 years. This shall facilitate growth of business and meet the working capital requirements during the initial years of operations.
Angel and VC funding in India has hit its highest ever mark. Moreover, the Government of India has also come up with the Fund of Funds, which is intended to fund the promising startups through a mechanism which offers less scope for manipulation. Many startups exist only on papers because of unavailability of timely credit. The government, through its Startup India proposal, has come up with a credit guarantee scheme which would encourage banks to provide loans for innovative ideas. The disparity between the number of male and female entrepreneurs is something which should be normalized if we dream of having a developed nation. In order to promote women entrepreneurship, Consortium of Women Entrepreneurs of India provides a platform to assist the women entrepreneurs to develop new and innovative techniques in business. Monetizing should be not the only motive of any enterprise. We're living in a country where girl children do not go to schools. There is no proper sanitization available, and there are many other social issues. Social entrepreneurship is the only way forward to bring transformation in the Indian society. Digitization of currency ensures decentralization of governance. It would nullify the scope of black money in the nation. E-governance would also decrease the scope of corruption and streamline the legal procedures.
Courses that educate students on entrepreneurship must be popularized by the universities. Though we have a significant number of students showcasing their entrepreneurial expertise in the recent days, as a whole, we need a lot more of them. Sophisticated incubation centers must be set up in various parts of the country, which would provide all the necessary tools from creation to development and deployment of a startup. And the government should incentivize incubation activities so that the incubators in the country increase. Now, we face the big question: what should be done for the sustainability of startups in India? I would like to invite Dipsha and Sarthak to take over.
Thank you, Minali and Raj. Let us now introduce the panelists for this session. Our first speaker is Mr. Madhub Agrawal. Mr. Madhub Agrawal is the business head of New Initiative Division and the national head HR of a 3,500 strong team at IndiaMart. Previously, as a director of technology at IndiaMart, Mr. Agrawal actively contributed to the firm's core product and helped implement several path-breaking innovations, which include the world's best B2B search and pay-per-lead model. Before joining IndiaMart, Mr. Agrawal was the CEO and co-founder of Access Info Solutions, implementing web-based solutions in the domain of reinsurance, education, and shipping. After completing his bachelor's degree in computer science from Harcourt Butler Technological Institute, Kanpur, Mr. Agrawal went on to pursue his master's degree from IIT Delhi in systems and management. converting ideas into successful web-based businesses, designing and automating processes, database architecture, and warehouse setup are his fortes. Sir, we are privileged to have you here with us today. As a token of our respect, we would like to present you with a bouquet. We request Professor Supriya Kala to do the honors. We cordially welcome you, sir.
Our next panelist is Mr. Rishabh Malik. Mr. Rishabh Malik is the co-founder and vice president business development at Room.in, which is India's first online marketplace to buy and sell new and used automobiles and automobile services. He has over 10 years of experience in strategy, finance, and entrepreneurship in the US, UK, India, and Singapore. Prior to Droom, he served as the operating partner and a founding team member at GSF India, India's largest and most successful technology accelerator program for early-stage startups. At GSF, he successfully managed a portfolio of 11 startups. He has worked closely on portfolios such as product, business development, hiring, and fundraising strategies. Mr. Malik holds a bachelor's degree in economics and business from the University of Texas at Austin and a master's in business administration from INSEAD. Mr. Malik is passionate about consumer technologies, mobile and e-commerce in emerging markets, and has been a founder, investor, and mentor to several technology startups in Southeast Asia and India. Sir, we are privileged to have you here with us today. As a token of our respect, we would like to present you with a bouquet. We request Professor Pinaki Das Gupta to do the honors. We cordially welcome you, sir.
Our next panelist is Mr. Rohit Chaddha. Mr. Rohit Chaddha is an investment banker turned entrepreneur and the founder of Paylo, an omni-channel payment solution with a vision to improve digital financial inclusion through mobile technology. Mr. Chaddha is also the co-founder and former MD of foodpanda.com, the world's largest food ordering platform. He was named Fortune 40 under 40 in 2015 and was Asia's top 25 e-commerce professionals by Asia Retail Congress 2015. He has received many accolades like Young Entrepreneur of the Year 2016, Top 25 Most Talented E-Commerce Professionals in India, Professional Entrepreneur of the Year 2014. Mr. Chaddha graduated from Delhi Technological University with a degree in computer engineering and worked as a software engineer for Computer Sciences Corporation. In 2007, he joined Indian Institute of Management, Calcutta, to do his MBA, after which he worked at Merrill Lynch as an investment banker, United Kingdom. He has been a key influencer on various subjects like retail, e-commerce, food tech, digital marketing, and entrepreneurship at various forums worldwide. Sir, we are privileged to have you here with us today. As a token of our respect, we would like to present you with a bouquet. We request Professor Rajiv Antaram to do the honors. We cordially welcome you, sir.
Our next panelist is Mr. Samirendra Chatterjee. Mr. Samirendra Chatterjee, IAS 1976 Assam Meghalaya Cadre, is currently the executive president of Sulabh International, a social service organization working to promote human rights, environmental sanitation, non-conventional sources of energy, waste management, and social reforms through education. As Secretary, Department of Ex-Servicemen, Ministry of Defense in 2011-12, Mr. Chatterjee took up the issue of one rank, one pension and was a key player in modifying the 6th Pay Commission formula. He brought about significant changes in the functioning of the organization as Central Provident Fund Commissioner in 2010-11 and was instrumental in privatization of national highways, being a member of the National Highways Authority of India in 1995. He was chairman, Investment Monitoring Committee, to oversee the investment of more than 5 lakh crore Provident Fund corpus. Mr. Chatterjee completed his MSc in Physics from St. Stephen's College, Delhi University, MPhil in Economics from Boston University, USA, and MBA in Finance from Southern Cross University, Australia. Having worked with multiple ministries in the state and central government, Mr. Chatterjee has gained tremendous insight into overcoming challenges faced in running an organization. Sir, we are privileged to have you here with us today. As a token of our respect, we would like to present you with a bouquet. We request Professor Pinaki Das Gupta to do the honors. We cordially welcome you, sir.
Our moderator for the session is Professor Supriya Kalla. Dr. Kalla is Assistant Professor, Marketing at International Management Institute, New Delhi. She has 14 years of rich experience in market research, teaching, and consultancy. As a part of her job at Sinovit Research, she has completed many market research and consultancy projects for national and international clients. During her PhD at Management Development Institute, Gurgaon, she has had the opportunity of attending various national and international conferences. In addition to her teaching, she has many national and international research publications in the area of impulse buying retail and brand management. Her areas of academic interest include co-marketing, brand management, market research, business marketing, and impulse buying. Ma'am, we are privileged to have you here with us today. As a token of our respect, we would like to present you with a bouquet. We request Nana Maheshwari, the ESIL Secretary, to do the honors. We cordially welcome you, ma'am.
Without further ado, I once again welcome all the guests and request Professor Supriya Kalla to initiate the session.
I feel very privileged sitting with very confident risk takers, and I also want to tell you a few things about them. These are people who think it's impossible to not question. These are people who are about passion, who are about optimism, and who are about hope. And putting all these three things together, they believe in reimagination, and this reimagination helps in creating change. So they bring about that change in the society which we really benefit from. So, today's day and age where economies are going through dramatic shifts, entrepreneurship is acting like an engine full of fuel right now. Do you agree with me? It's absolutely full of fuel right now? Yes. The reality is not as romantic as this. There are certain things which are playing games with romanticity, romantic essence of this reality, and which is to do with the fact that to start up your own business, you need access to capital, you need to meet the right people, and you need to have the right mentors. Otherwise, you're nowhere. Everything is fine, but you're nowhere. So taking these three things, which I really think are big limitations, I look forward to my panelists to explain other hurdles that they faced in starting up. Hurdles that came across that stopped you from starting up as you wanted to start up. Please use the mic. Anyone. Right now I'm not directing my questions at anyone.
Okay. Firstly, thanks for having me and for the very warm welcome. I'm honored to be here. I'll talk about a hurdle I faced when I set out and started my first company. I did my MBA at INSEAD, and I had worked in the corporate sector for about 7 years in private equity, in telecoms. And while I was at business school, I got very excited about an idea with a colleague of mine, and we were extremely passionate about going out and starting. Unfortunately, I had a pretty big educational loan. It was a euro loan, and I had been working in India, so I couldn't afford to pay it off immediately. I had to work it down, and that was a big hurdle for me personally. I was extremely passionate about what I wanted to do, so it was clear that I had to do it. It was about finding a way and a starting point, and the way I did that was I negotiated a 1-year moratorium with the financial institution that gave me the loan. So for 1 year, they allowed me to not make any payments, and after 1 year from graduating, I had to start paying it down. And that 1 year allowed me the flexibility to go after the idea that I was extremely passionate about, build on it, and hopefully make something off of it. So that's one hurdle. I don't know if you guys want to step in or...
That's a big one.
Yeah.
I mean, typically whenever somebody wants to start up, finance is always the most important and the biggest hurdle that anybody faces. And I think, and it was true in my case also. And I think in a lot of cases, but I would kind of generalize the entire, the whole finance discussion to be, so that everybody also identifies with that. So there's this question that always comes up, whether you should get some work experience before you start up, or should you just go directly barging in and execute your idea. So essentially, it's the same thing that happened to me. Why MBA? You guys would have answered this question like a year back or something. And these educational institutes always tell you, never say that I want to be an entrepreneur, or never tell them that you want to start your own business even if you want to, because then there'll be questions about what you want to do, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, so, but I always knew that, yes, I wanted to be self-employed. I wanted to do something on my own. However, I still went ahead and worked for a couple of years because I knew that I didn't have any financial backing. Financial backing, not really to start a business, but more importantly to sustain myself, because I come from a moderate or humble background. To sustain myself, I need some money in the bank so that I can sustain my daily expenses or monthly expenses, etc. So I think that is how I overcame. It is pretty similar to Rishabh's that I did. But I think apart from finance, what the most important hurdle that anybody would face is finding believers, because more often than not, everybody thinks that their idea is unique, or at least should think, unless you're bringing something that is already successful in some other country to your country, which is what I did. But anyways, but more importantly, there too, the problem that comes in is the market and the people, the stakeholders that you're going to target, be it on the consumer side, be it on the business side, to find believers there that what you're trying to do is going to make a difference, is going to add value. That's where you see one of the major hurdles coming in. But I think with persistence that can be overcome, and with giving zero fee, everybody is happy to use your service if you don't charge them. So that's the best solution when you first go out to a business.
Okay, I must have closed almost like 8 or 10 businesses after I started them. Okay, so and each time the hurdles were different actually. Okay, so the first business that I started was way back in 1992. I had just completed my studies and was about to start, and I picked up a bigger than solvable challenge probably then. Okay, and that hurdle was mostly technology hurdle, and I couldn't solve that. That's why I closed that business. I was trying to print a newspaper immediately after stock market closes, because in those days the stock market news used to come the next day, and the stock market used to close at 2 o'clock. So I was trying to print a newspaper. The idea was to get the newspaper out in the street by 4 p.m. Okay. And the technology available to us in those days was not enough for me to handle this kind of speed and to take the newsprint to the street. Okay. Though I had an investor then, and it's unlikely, but yes, I had an investor in 1992 who was willing to bet on this idea. Okay. Then I started working on another product, and this time, next hurdle was I failed because I didn't have the right team to take it to the market. Okay. I had a very good product. It was a great product. I'm talking about 97, 98. And I didn't have a team where I could take it to the market. So each time the hurdle would be different. So it's not like, I can't generalize that finance is the only hurdle that you're going to face when you're talking in terms of entrepreneurship. The access to market can be an equally big hurdle, because the next business that I closed was because of access to market. I had money, I had team, but I did not have the access to market where I wanted to sell it. Okay. So that was the third biggest hurdle that I faced. So over these years, I have seen many hurdles hit us, but each time, and I'm talking about the failures, but I also have some great successes also on the way. And that's why we are sitting here today talking about the entrepreneurship. So persistence is the key, and changing your idea and pivoting around your idea becomes essential the moment you hit a hurdle. So hurdle should not stop you and should not block your way. Okay, that's what I would like to say.
Thank you very much. Actually, I, of course, among the panelists here, belong to an older generation where, employee aspiration was much higher than becoming an employer. But still, there are certain things which are valid all the time. Even during those days, and I'm talking about the 70s, entrepreneurship was there. There were many people. I think Reliance is one of the best examples. I have seen Dhirubhai Ambani grow up from those days when he also had almost nothing. Of course, he had some trade in cotton and silk and synthetics and all, but from a trader, how he became an entrepreneur and a successful one at that, and the biggest one probably is the example. So entrepreneurship has always been there. What are the qualities and what makes an entrepreneur successful compared to others? And what I'm going to tell you are some of the basic principles. Always think that there are other people who are at least equally as intelligent as you are to be able to do the same thing that you are planning to do. Never underestimate an adversary, right? And if things were that easy, everybody would be doing it. And then there would be no money to be made into it. So the idea is to be a cut above others. In a competitive world, everybody wants to be an engineer or a doctor these days. How many make it? Why? Because of the competition that is involved. And imagine tomorrow, suppose every student that comes out of the university could get admission by somehow expansion of educational supply, etc., could become a doctor and or could become an engineer. Where would be that value? How will they be any better than anybody else in the society? So it is always, a competition which is going on, whether it is in terms of getting a job or whether in terms of creating job for others. So entrepreneurship is basically a passion where you have a lot of environmental disadvantages, environmental constraints, environmental adversities, and a successful entrepreneur is one who takes into account all that, whatever the time frame, it doesn't matter. Now it is more, people are talking about it more, but these factors have always been there. In fact, today it is good that the government is coming forward to give certain incentives. But like I always used to say, that this income tax incentive doesn't mean much because income tax is paid only after you have an income. If you don't have an income, what use is that income tax incentive? Whether it is for 3 years or 5 years. I remember in the highways when I was there, we were privatizing. I analyzed it and said that it's not a fit case for privatizing. You will need a lot of subsidy. Then the government came up with this idea that we'll give 5-year tax holiday. I said, what use is it? And that 5 years, you do it at the end of 15 years, when it becomes sustainable, then it is understandable. The first 5 years or 8 years doesn't make any difference. So these incentives are part of it, but please remember that you have to be a cut above others to be competitive.
Thank you so much. That was a very insightful beginning to the session. Definitely not the most important one, but I would say the most prominent one, the investor. So can I bother you all a bit to understand what do investors look for? As in, what is it that is playing on their head when they make the decision? What is it that investors look for?
I take the, we'll talk about obviously early stage companies here because you guys are wanting to be entrepreneurs. So essentially, I think the most important thing that any investor would look at is the team. When you say the team, it could be the founders, it could be the people who come along with the founders. That's essentially the most key important thing because it's them that they are believing in. Obviously, the space or the industry or the idea that you're talking about is important. So they need to believe that there is a market for it. Yes, that is also important. But more importantly, they need to believe in the team. They need to believe because that is the team that is going to execute it. So you could have $1 million idea, which is awesome, and which is a sure shot, which could be a sure shot success, but then it still needs to be executed. From idea to execution is going to be done by the team. So hence, the most important thing that the investors would look at is the team and what homework they've done and how much understanding do they have of the space that they're basically going to be talking about.
That's very interesting, Rohit, because one keeps coming across this concentration effect and the kind of effect it has on the venture capitalists. So can we hear something from Madhup about it?
See, as rightly said by Rohit, team stands on the top. But along with that, what people look at, or if you approach someone saying that I have an idea and I want to execute the idea, the belief in that idea, the passion that you carry along with it, and that needs to convey across, that needs to be conveyed across to the investors. They need to see that in your eyes and in your expression, in your body language, that this is, yes, this person, this guy really believes in what he's trying to propose. Okay. And of course, these are the things, and then what exactly are you trying to solve? So is it a real world problem that you're trying to solve? Or is it something where you're trying to improve the efficiencies? Okay. So trying to improve the efficiencies of an existing system is relatively easier than trying to solve a real world problem. Okay. So these are the only two spaces where you can create a new startup, either try to solve a real world problem or to improve the efficiencies of an existing system. Okay. So depending on where you are pitching your idea and what exactly is the space that you are trying to get into, in that space also, what exactly are you trying to do will play an important role.
Rishabh, you are wearing, sorry.
Quickly add to that, yeah. I think just to add to that very quickly, how replicable is your idea? Very, very important. So basically, what is the kind of entry barrier that you are going to create? So that the next guy who's seen you doing this at whatever scale that you're doing it at, can he just pump in more money and kind of get you to shut shop just because he has deeper pockets? So essentially, how replicable and what is the kind of entry barrier that you have created, or how are you different from a second person who just looks at what you're doing and tries to replicate that? I mean, how are you different? That's very, very important.
Okay, thank you so much, Rohit. Coming back to you, Rishabh, you're wearing both the hats. Both the hats, in the sense, both the hats. So what is it that you look for as an investor, and what are the problems, or what is it that you do when you seek investment? Both the things.
So I think, I agree with everything my colleagues have said. I think I have kind of three big buckets that I look to check off when I personally invest. The first one is the team and the people. So who are the founders? Why are they doing what they're doing? Do they have experience in that industry? Did they stumble upon a problem in that sector that they very deeply, passionately want to solve? Or did they just read TechCrunch and say that, this model is a billion-dollar business in another geography, so I should do that in India. So I think the why, so who are the people and why are they doing it, matters a lot. What are their backgrounds? What kind of educational and professional pedigree do they come from? So if I were to put kind of weights on it, I think 50% of my decision making is based on only the people, because I think the business idea will evolve. I think Mr. Agarwal talked about the importance of iterating in your entrepreneurial journey. You will not always, for the life cycle of your journey, do exactly what you set out to do before you started. It's going to keep changing multiple times. So the idea will change, the business model will change, the market or industry might change, but the people will hopefully remain the same, right? So you're backing people first when it comes to early stage. And then the second one, I think, is like looking at the industry and seeing, how big can it really get, right? So like at Droom, we're in the automobile industry. Based on our market sizing, it's a $125 billion industry on an annualized basis for anything automobile, assets, services, everything. So it's a huge opportunity. So you have a shot at making something really big. So that's the second one. And I think the third one for me is technology, because I'm a diehard believer in technology businesses, in how they can scale, they can be sustainable, they can keep costs low as the top line and the revenue and the network and users, etc., kind of increase over time. So my three buckets are team, market, and technology. Maybe 50% on team and 25% each on the other two.
Thank you so much, Rishabh. In fact, you've answered one of the things which I really wanted to ask was the importance of technology. I have it here. I have the answer. Now, my next question is to you, Rohit. Lean times, incidentally, that's what 2016 is seeing. You know, there's something which is making one feel, I've been through a lot of conferences and newspaper keeps talking about it, that investors are tending to pull their purses back. So what do you say about that?
Well, I disagree. I don't think investors are consciously trying to hold back. There's typically a life cycle that any entrepreneur also goes through, and I think it's the same case with VCs right now. So when you start a business, the first stage is called uninformed optimism. Yeah. So you don't really know too much, but you think that you have an awesome idea.
And we call that irrational exuberance. So that's even worse.
That's the market's perspective. Okay. But essentially, the cycle that it goes through is uninformed optimism, right? Where you're really optimistic, but you don't really know, the real problems. So once you start doing stuff, and you realize that, oh, there were so many issues that you're facing now that you didn't really realize earlier, that turns into informed pessimism. Then you're thinking, oh, whether this will work or whether this will not. Oh, did I make a mistake in doing this? Stuff like that. And then when you persist, then you kind of see that, oh, you found a solution, and now you know that things are suddenly now working out and stuff like that. That then turns into informed optimism. So I think this is how a startup goes through. Or an entrepreneur, the stages that an entrepreneur goes through in his journey, and I think it's the same thing that has happened in the VC circles as well. So last year was basically uninformed optimism, where it was which is what you're calling irrational exuberance, and also it was the fear of missing out, in my opinion. So you've seen, hey, this food tech startup's doing really well. Now I don't have food tech in my portfolio. What do I do now? So let me back another food tech startup. You don't see that, okay, there is no difference that what this guy is trying to do, right? So he's not trying to, he's not doing things differently. He's basically just replicating the model that an existing player with deep pockets is doing. And so you say, okay, no, just because I want it in my portfolio, I'll do it. Yeah. Whereas now, this year, it's I think, informed pessimism. So you've seen so many startups fail. And so many funded startups fail. So there's a lot of difference there. You said 90% startups fail in the slide earlier. That's always been true. It's nothing new. In fact, it's even higher. More number of startups fail than 90%. It's just that now this is being covered in the media, so now you know that, oh, this startup's failing and that startup's failing. Yeah, but the difference here between last year and this year is that a lot of funded startups are failing, and that is why the pessimism. Because now I think investors do realize that, hey, let's just hold our horses. Let's not have a fear of missing out. Let's look at the sustainability of the business model. Let's look at how this guy is solving the problem, or how this business is basically solving something for the society or for whoever or whatever they are trying to do. How is it different? How easy or difficult is it to replicate, et cetera, et cetera. So now it's more, let's look at the right business and invest in the right business. So it's not really pulling your purses, because you'd still see very large deals happening right now as well, right? That's because investors here are now properly evaluating businesses before they're investing, rather than saying, hey, I don't have this in my portfolio, so let me invest.
Rohit, related point, startups are dealing with a fund crunch right now. So can I say that, is there a possibility of low-cost routes? Is there an availability of low-cost routes?
Absolutely. I think it's innovation, right? As Madhup earlier said, that you'll face hurdles, and then you have to solve for those hurdles. So essentially, And that I think that's anyways how it should have been earlier also. It shouldn't have been the way that it was, that you take an idea on paper, say, hey, look, I'm from an IIM or I'm from an IIT, so now give me X amount of money because I will do this. It's more now that, okay, so you think that this will make a difference. You're solving a particular problem. So why don't you show it to me? So why don't we see a pilot? Why don't we see how it is actually getting solved? And any business that requires a ton of money before actually seeing that the solution actually makes sense is a senseless business in my opinion. I would never invest in such a business where you say that, hey, no, first give me $1 million and then I will show you that, yes, my problem is solvable. Unless you're creating IP or it's biotech or stuff like that. I mean, in those scenarios, obviously you need a lot of money for research, but generally technology, not.
Rishabh, can I have your views on the lean time bit?
So I think it is cyclical. I think investors, there is a herd mentality. There is a fear of missing out. But to what Rohit said earlier, it's about finding believers. So if you have an idea, you're an entrepreneur, you're looking to start out, you got to find your first early believers, whether that person is an investor, it's a co-founder, it's a senior employee, it's your college institution that's going to incubate your idea, whatever it is, it's about finding believers. And the markets will move up and down, but yeah, there's a crunch. People are using words like looking for profitability and revenue and, lower cost base and stuff. But I think the money's still out there. You just got to go out and find it. And honestly, I think these times instill a certain sense of discipline in you that will remain for the life cycle of your business, of being frugal, of bootstrapping, and kind of making conscious decisions on budgets and spends.
All right. Thank you so much. Madhup, I need your views on one thing, and Rohit as well. One keeps reading in newspapers that there is a lot of say that investors have in M&As, mergers and acquisitions. So what is it that you've come across and what's your view on this?
See, investors are typically, of course, worried about their investment, and they should be, rightly so, because they have put in the money in your business. If they sense it's not moving in the right direction, and if they sense there are synergies within their portfolios, they would want to create a bigger, a more workable option for the money to grow. Okay. So there would definitely be some say by investors or some coaxing by investors to look at other businesses. And at times it can be more than the money. It could be the team, it could be the execution capabilities, it could be the technology. So there's so many things that the investors look at apart from the money. And if they have right companies in their portfolio, they would definitely look at creating a bigger vehicle or a bigger mass of, you can say, technology and execution capabilities so that it stands a better chance of succeeding. Having said that, entrepreneurs still have their say because at the end of the day, it's them who are driving the business. So if no investors would like to alienate the entrepreneur, because investors are not going to run the business for you. Okay? So they're only there to mentor you, guide you, give you more money. But if investors alienate the entrepreneur, we have very rare cases where the business has come out and succeeded. So entrepreneurs would always carry the equal amount of weight and sometimes more weight in deciding what needs to be done in the business. So both things have to be viewed in the perspective. We can't generalize this statement saying that investors are pushing for
Understood.
M&A.
Rohit, what do you say about this?
I think entrepreneurs are a breed of people, right? So they are optimists. They think they are the best because that is why they think that they can do it better than everybody else. So that is what in the first instance, that is what an entrepreneur would. That is why an entrepreneur would stay away from an M&A because either he's being acquired or he's acquiring, right? So if he's acquiring, he'd say, hey, why should I give him so much money? I'll use that money to build myself, right? And if he's getting acquired, he'd say that, no, I can still do it. I won't give up. So hence, I think first-time entrepreneurs or people who haven't really seen M&A earlier are kind of not very keen to do it. I was I was part of that mentality, so to speak. So the first acquisition that we did, investors had to coax me as well, kind of explain to me why it's important, etc., etc. So yeah, I mean, and as Madhub said, it's their money, so they're obviously concerned, but they will never alienate you. Okay. But once as an entrepreneur, once you've done it, or once you've done one single M&A, for at least after I did it, I realized how awesome it was for my business. And I'm all gung-ho about acquisitions now. Because I know that they can actually make a lot of difference, and inorganic growth is awesome.
No, it's very visible in press, Pelo and Rupli, all over the place.
Yeah, so inorganic growth is awesome.
I just want to add one point on M&As. So I think firstly, traditionally in India, M&As have been, I think there are more M&As that have been acqui-hires and fire sales than pure acquisitions, because you're trying to make the pie bigger and create more shareholder value. That's number one. I think only in the past couple of years you have seen a couple of all-cash deals where companies have come in and paid millions of dollars to buy another company. So that's one. And I think, and my theory, and I could be completely wrong, is that the reason behind that is that culturally, we all think that, oh, if you can do it, then I can do it too. Yeah. So why should I take a pot of money and pay it to you when I can just go and build it myself? I can go hire 50 people more, and I can go and create what you created. So that's traditionally how we think. But I think it's changing a little bit. And the second point I just wanted to make is that in times like this, when money is harder to get, right? And for an investor, if you're an entrepreneur, you are one of 5 or 10 companies in the portfolio. So it's a very objective decision that, oh, okay, I don't want to put more money into this company. This company is kind of similar to the second company in my portfolio. Let me just merge the two. But for an entrepreneur, it's his hard work, blood, sweat that has gone in for years. And just like that, an investor makes a decision. So it's important for an entrepreneur to understand what's going on in the market and what some of these decisions, how people make some of these decisions. Are they really buying? Are they offering you an acquisition because they see value? And are they willing to put cash on the table? Or is it just like, oh, I don't want to keep putting more money into this company, so let me just merge it into something else in the portfolio?
That's very interesting, Rishabh. Thanks, you mentioned that. Now, from the interesting perspective on VCs, let me move to another very interesting area, which is Startup India. So, in the perspective of Startup India, Sameer, I'll start with you. I want your views on the feasibility, actionability, and sustainability of this program called Startup India.
It's definitely a very, very good beginning compared to what it was, because whenever we measure something, it has to be in terms of the past. Today, there is a lot of scope for people to come up with entrepreneurial talent and skill because the opportunities are being given. Earlier, this opportunity was not there. So to that extent, it's a very big progress. But then again, as I said, that you have always to keep in mind that what you can do, why others can't do. There has to be a system where you have a barrier to entry. Now, if you have created a successful barrier to entry, I think that is the best solution, at least for a time being. So to that extent, it will definitely be a better success than otherwise if it is freely entry and exit is always there. So that you have to take into account, because after all, it is your money, your skill and all that is going to be there. So you have to evaluate that and then see. But yes, the opportunities are there, and probably today you can take a chance where you will not lose your shirt in case you fail. That, I think, is a very, very big positive to what it was earlier. Earlier, this sort of scope was very limited.
Madhub and Rishabh, both, I need your views on its implications on the entrepreneurial ecosystem, implications of Startup India.
See, I am part of company India Mart, which is a B2B organization, and we have almost 2.5 million businesses listed on our platform. And my experience says that out of these 2.5 million businesses, every year a certain percentage of businesses close down. But the same guys, they come up with a new business next year, and they come back and set up a new catalog with us. So my understanding is that this Startup India concept has been there in our business community since very early. I see this new initiative as a movement rather than a new, something new that is happening. It's like we're trying to bring it to the forefront. It's more than policies or framework. It's a concept of way of life. So I see it happening every day in our portfolio, in our platform. Every day new businesses come up. Every day people try out new ideas. And trust me, not 2.5 million businesses, not each one of them will become a unicorn. But still, they're trying to do something different. They're trying to earn a livelihood out of their businesses that they're trying to create new jobs, and each business out there is creating new jobs. So what's more important is that creation of these new jobs, creation of these new businesses, and that's what I believe is the concept of Startup India and Stand Up India.
I agree with everything everyone said. I think it's a great start, and I think it is a reflection of our government looking at certain best practices in other markets, in other countries, right? Whether it is giving additional support to women entrepreneurs, whether it is giving tax benefits in the first 3 years, whether it is ease of incorporation of a business, right? Singapore was rated the easiest country in the world to do business in because in two business hours, you can incorporate a business, right? So you know, if you can go through line by line, and there are many things that could be better and may not be the right approach to start, but the fact that we're looking at it at a government and policy level, the way we are, I think is a huge move for every entrepreneur in this country.
Absolutely. Very interesting. From this perspective of M&A that we're discussing, there's a very interesting thing which I've been regularly reading in the newspapers for last few days, where startups have cast away acquired companies. The prominent one being Ola and Taxi for sure. The prominence is mostly because of cost of acquisition. Rohit, I really want your views on this particular perspective because this completely leaves me perplexed. Why so?
We were discussing this earlier, and I said I wasn't surprised. I thought it was too late. I thought it would happen much earlier. So essentially, there are various reasons why you would acquire a particular company. If a company is adding another vertical, if you're adding another vertical, you're increasing the breadth of what you're doing, or is it merely to become a market leader? So we did it to become market leaders. That was basically whenever we did acquisition, most of our acquisitions, where we are not really interested in the technology, we were interested in more in the customers that the other company was getting us. And I think it's the same in case of Ola and Taxi for sure. Given the competitiveness between Ola and Uber, they acquired Taxi for sure because they wanted to become bigger than Uber. So that's one part covered, where the reason of acquisition is extremely important on deciding what you want to do with the company longer term. Now comes, okay, why would they do it, and why would somebody else, like we were earlier discussing Coca-Cola and Thumbs Up.
And this killing the brand bit.
Yeah, so killing the brand bit, yeah. So that's what I was coming to. So why would they kill the brand that they've acquired? Essentially, again, depends a lot on the business that you're doing. If it's a commodity business, right? For example, now cabs have been commoditized. You don't really care where you're booking it from. It's a car that is going to drop you from A to B. Food, completely not commoditized. Taste is very important. Experience is very important. How long will the person take to deliver, et cetera, right? So it's basically about the business. Here, it's a commodity business. You don't really care what cab is coming, as long as you've got access to the cab. And hence, and more importantly, now from a business owner's perspective, maintaining two brands is extremely expensive. And you being a marketing person would know how much money that you need to spend to maintain two brands. So, and that's what we did. We acquired Tasty Khana. We said, hey, I'm spending money on television, crores of money on television for people to know my brand. Now I can't do this for two brands. If there's nothing more that this business is getting me than customers, let's rebrand that to my brand, right? And get those people to order through the same platform. And it's exactly the same thing. Today you can find technology as in Uber for X. You can get clones where you say, it's the same application. If I were to change that from Uber to Ola to Taxi for Sure to Conventus, cab booking, I mean, it won't really matter. So let's just give somebody one app rather than two and get all the traffic in one.
Rohit, very wonderfully explained. This was a big doubt. Now I want to bother both of you, Madhup and Samar. This is very strong sense that one has got over last couple of years, which is to do with entrepreneurs' keenness and motivation for innovation. Some link it with constraints, some link it with the new age approaches. What's your view on this?
See, constraints lead to innovation. That's what I believe. Okay. So if I'm constrained in my business and I'm still looking to move forward, I'll try to find a way around it. I'll try to find a way to beat that constraint and still move on. Okay. So that is the basis on which I innovate. I can't innovate in just space. I mean, there's no vacuum. Okay. So I'm doing a business. I hit a wall. I need to find a way to climb the wall and go to the other side. Okay. So there could be easier ways, there could be difficult ways, there could be ways that can be driven by money, there could be ways that can be driven by technology, and of course there are very, very innovative ways also. Okay. And every day in every business, in India Mart's history of 20 years, it's not like that we have always been growing like this. There have been ups, there have been downs. So we have faced two busts as such. We have faced the dot-com bust of 2000. We have faced another bust of this subprime crisis in the US. So, and all these things have happened, and we have still tried to find a way to keep the business moving on. So the constraints are the most, in fact, relevant challenges that you would see that would encourage you to find a way around moving on. Okay.
Samar, what would you say about this?
I think I agree with him to the extent that yes, whenever you hit a hurdle, you try to innovate, and that is where most of it happens. But then cost is also a factor. You are always trying to lower your cost. Now that in itself is an attempt to innovate, because unless you do that, others will catch up. And before others can catch up, you want to innovate. One good example in this is the solar energy, as you are aware.
Absolutely.
Solar
Absolutely.
energy had never been successful in India. In fact, I don't know, you must be having the statistics, that 20% of our non-conventional energy is wind energy. Only about 7% is solar energy. But the constraint was that the capital cost of solar energy was very high. Today it has almost halved. And therefore you see that there is a lot of innovation and lot of implementation going on in the solar energy. So that itself is an innovation, because you keep improving even the status quo thing. You don't get satisfied with it, and I'm sure that wind energy will also now try to come up with products which will be cheaper and more this thing. So it's a continuing process. The idea is to keep one ahead of your competitors.
Okay, thank you so much. In fact, Samar, that leads me to my next question, which is pretty related. That's around the, there is something which one observes around the business model of entrepreneurs. So what would you say? It's about profitability. What is the business model that entrepreneurs follow? It's about sustainability, profitability, both, or there is a continuous struggle?
Yes, obviously you're not doing charity or anything. So a business model will always be, the bottom line is profit. And you say even during the dot-com bust, I used to wonder what was going on, where the valuations were way off the mark. Incidentally, I was lucky enough, I had some shares of some of these companies. When the going was too good, I said, sell it off. You don't know what will happen tomorrow. And then it bust. So you have to have a rational approach. Bottom line is important. Top line is important, no doubt, but then ultimately it's the bottom line. So I think entrepreneurship is about sustainable model where you can continue to make profit and benefit the society, whether in terms of employees, whether in terms of customers, whether in terms of the environment, which again now has become a very important factor, as you know. So innovation is all about it, and entrepreneurship is taking all this into account to keep yourself relevant and ahead of your competitors.
My question to Rohit and Rishabh now, between this quest of sustainability and profitability, there usually are business models which are around agility. agility or the freedom to move between both sustainability and profitability. What would you say about this?
So I think these are replaceable terms, and the longer term. So sustainability will only come from profitability.
Yeah.
Because I mean there is a short-term sustainability that you take from external funding, but that's not real sustainability. Sustainability will always come from profitability, right? So hence it's not either or, it's always both, and both mean profitability. And now coming to the agility part that you said. So I think any business, the success of any business depends a lot on how agile that business is. When you look at history, I mean, even the biggest companies that we now know of, Intel, HP, these guys were not doing what they're doing currently when they started. I've forgotten the earlier, I think, before making microprocessors, Intel started doing that, I think, in the 1960s. But before that, they were making radios or something like that. I don't really remember right now.
I agree with you. I think something similar.
They actually completely pivoted their business 20-something years after they were already making profits and after they were already doing that business. Yet they decided that, okay, this is the future, so let's do this now, right? And so agility is extremely, extremely important. You see Snapdeal. You know, a very recent example is Snapdeal. They started off selling deals for restaurants. And then they pivoted to e-commerce. And now you see where they are. So it's all about agility, I think.
All right. Rishabh, what would you say about this?
So I think I completely agree on the agility part. I think if you're an early stage company, one of the biggest benefits you have is just that speed to market is your competitive advantage. If you're comparing yourself to a 30, 40, 50-year-old firm that's been in the industry for a long time and you're a small startup, I don't know, 25 to maybe 100, 150 people, you can execute decision making, and the agility is what can keep you alive and can take you to market faster than a big Goliath. On the point of sustainability versus profitability, I think it depends. I think it depends on what industry you're in and what your playbook is, right? I am very, very biased in my opinions because everything I talk or think is related to technology or internet businesses, and I see enough businesses there where profitability is not really important at all. Like the IP you are building lies in the network, lies in the technology, and that can be worth billions of dollars. I can give you guys 10 examples of acquisitions where there was very little monetization or profitability, but billions of dollars of shareholder wealth was created, right? Google bought Motorola's mobility arm and basically valued them for each patent that they had. It didn't matter how many users they were. It was core IP that was built and acquired, right? The whole world talked about WhatsApp and Facebook, $16 billion in cash.
In fact, that was my question.
Right? So $16 billion in cash. How many people think that's like overpriced? Like it was like ridiculous amounts of money for an app that lets you chat. Yeah, so most people do, right?
Nice.
So
Very
on
good.
average, most people thought it was completely overpriced. There was no business model. WhatsApp at different points of time sometimes charged $1 to download. Otherwise, it was free. There was no advertising, right? When Mark Zuckerberg was asked at Barcelona at the mobile conference, why did you pay $16 billion for this app? He said, my core business is Facebook. I make money through advertising. I have acquired 450 million users by buying this company, and I need to make $42 per person in lifetime advertising revenue, and I break even on this deal. $42 on a per person basis. Guess what? 18 months later, he's already broken even on that deal, right? So I think sustainability versus profitability. Did WhatsApp need to have made millions of dollars of revenue and be a profitable business? Not really. So I think the answer is it depends, and it comes down to what your playbook is. If you're a retail business, yeah, you have to have gross and net margins. But if you're a core IP technology business, then the technology you build or the network that comes around it is what's valuable.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Rishabh. There's another question. Any one of you can help me decode this, because this has been perplexing a lot of us for quite some time. You know, there are certain things that have come to overshadow the existing means of action. With the new channel, which is in action right now, network effect is the one that's dominating the discussions. What would you say how to deal with network effect and positives and detrimental effects of network effects? Is there any getting away from network effect?
See, network effect is actually in your hand. How do you want to use it? Okay. So there's nothing per se called network effect, but in the business that you are trying to do, how you leverage on your network, how you want to use it, how you want to extend your network beyond the reach is what is important. Okay. So for example, on IndiaMart.com, how we use the network effect. Okay. We have totally transformed into a different philosophy. Okay. So IndiaMart was designed as a platform for sellers initially. Okay. Then we realized that every seller is a buyer too. Okay. So we pivoted our business model from sellers to buyer-centric. Okay. Okay. Now, as a buyer, if you go to a platform and you say that, okay, I was able to find my product easily on this platform, that message has to transfer or translate or travel through the network of that buyer. Okay. So my network effect gets multiplied or accentuated through that network. Okay. But in a business, in a startup environment, if you want to start up a business, you want to leverage on the network that you have. Okay. It could be in terms of technology, it could be in terms of sourcing, it could be in terms of advice, mentoring, or even in terms of raising funds. Okay. So raising funds is where it is getting played very loudly in the media nowadays, but that's only one part of the network effort. Okay. So how you want to use your network is what is important.
Okay, that's interesting. Yes,
I'll add to that from a consumer-facing business point of view. I think networks are amazing for consumers always because they can talk about good things about companies and bad things about companies, right? So always amazing from the consumer perspective. Now from the business perspective, they can be positive and negative. And a classic example of when they're positive always is when the startup's relatively new, right? So nobody knows your brand. So if people are talking about you on any social network and you want them to talk about you on a social network because then people get to know your brand, right? So hence it's free marketing. So it's extremely important for a startup to have good network effect in that perspective. Now you talk about a brand that has actually been built, that you are big enough, you're doing above the line marketing, so everybody now knows your brand. At this point, to me, it seems like there is only negative left from the network effect, because now this network will only be used for complaints and for grievances. And I mean, it's a good thing because it helps the brand reach the consumer. So if somebody wants to complain about your service, it's great that they can. But then there are a lot of consumers who misuse it and would try to get benefits like vouchers and this and that and kind of put in fake complaints for your brand, and then kind of which becomes then detrimental. So for a startup, always good. For a large company, good to reach out to consumers, but yeah, can have its negatives.
Thank you so much, Rohit. Very well explained. Samir, I'm going to bother you once again. I want students to learn from this perspective, how startups in mainstream can learn from Sulabh's model.
Well, Sulabh, as I said, is a social entrepreneur. It's not actually, and the objective with which Sulabh had set out is totally different from its current work. Sulabh has started with the objective of Gandhian philosophy, as I told you, of liberating the scavengers, those who used to physically handle and carry the night soil. But amazingly, this is where entrepreneurship counts. Our founder, Dr. Pathak, he was the first person to realize that if you want to liberate the scavengers, you have to have an alternate technology. Now, unless you have an alternate technology, somebody will have to do that job of taking that human waste from the houses to some dumping ground. So, And it's surprising that even over 5,000 years of our civilization, nobody had come up with it. So he took this as an opportunity very passionately. If you see his history, he was actually thrown out of the family. He was ridiculed for for dealing with an issue which was not in fashion those days. But he persisted because of the passion. And what he created was the invention which got rid of this menace of handling of human waste. And after that, he didn't have to look back. So this creation was a passionate thing. There was no profit in it at that time, because just liberating scavengers don't bring you profit. But once this technology of his two-pit compost toilet was invented by him, which disposed the material locally and used it as a resource, it got converted into fertilizer. Because earth, as you know, is the greatest destroyer of everything. You know, it is the biggest thing. Even dead bodies, cremated and all that gets destroyed over 30 years. So this human waste could get destroyed. So this is how he passionately he started this. It took him about 10 years to sort of stabilize, where he was ostracized, etc. But social entrepreneurship is, but his model was beautiful. You will be surprised to know that Sulabh does not take any financial assistance or grant. It is
that's very interesting.
Self-sustaining model where we use the profit that is generated from the core business activities into doing social work.
Thank you so much. From there, we move on to something very optimistic, Rishabh. Your role as investor. So how do you decide it's a big idea? What about an idea makes it a big idea?
So I think it comes down to, of course, I do my own research on the market or the opportunity. You learn a lot from the entrepreneur. Like I look for the entrepreneur to educate me about how real the problem is, what sort of the insights are on, in terms of how the problem can or can't be solved, and as well as how big the industry can become. So I'm not the subject matter expert, but the entrepreneur is, and it's his job to kind of educate the investor that this is how big the market is, and these are where all the opportunities lie, and this is kind of what the future is looking like. The problem in India, I think, is that data is really hard to find. So if you go and start, researching on the internet, how big is the retail industry or the travel or transport or healthcare or whatever, you'll find multiple data sources that give you different numbers. But you got to find something that sort of stacks up, right? That's logical. There are some assumptions made. The assumptions are reasonable, and it stacks up to something. The other way of looking at it is that, this is India. There's 1.2 billion people, so every industry is almost $1 billion industry, right? But how do you figure out, as a startup, you're time constrained, resource constrained, money constrained. You've got to make the most of the 15, 16 waking hours you have in a day and try to solve a problem, and hopefully someone will pay you some money for it. So,
understood, very well understood about this big idea, which is a big botheration for all my students here. This question is to you, Madhup. This third-party outsourcing in B2B markets, which started with your pay-per-lead concept, do you see a space for new startups in this third-party outsourcing?
Third-party outsourcing is a very, very, you can say, easy concept as a concept. But the catch there is the efficiency factor. Why would a company outsource? The company would outsource because they want to optimize their costs and improve their efficiencies. And all of this is driven by technology. So if you can design or build technology that can help you manage a part of your business by outsourcing it to a third party and still able to drive the efficiencies and monitor the progress of the business, then it's a good idea to invest time, effort, and energy on. From IndiaMart's perspective, I myself have created many processes that were finally outsourced. In fact, I drove a lot of outsourcing from IndiaMart's stable. And before we started outsourcing, we first drove that pilot inside the organization, saying that, okay, this is the process that I want to outsource, and can I run it in a pilot model, in a remote model? And once I was convinced, once our management was convinced, then we started looking at partners who have the efficiencies, the abilities, the technology, and the will to drive that business for us. Okay. So that's why outsourcing is a very, very, and it's inevitable. I mean, it is going to happen. Any business that is growing, that business would need to outsource, okay? And they would want to focus on their core business model, okay? So as you become big, the need for outsourcing becomes more and more evident. So it's good to focus in an area, but it's a low margin, high volume, efficiency driven business where if you are able to manage your efficiencies, then you will be able to sustain it. Otherwise, it is going to become a difficult boat to travel on.
Thank you, Madhu. This question of mine is to three of you, because Samir is completely safe from all this. People don't want to stick around for too long. How do you deal with that? There's a very high rate at which people join you and leave you. So how do you deal with that?
So attrition is always an issue.
It's an issue, yeah.
Yeah,
And is it a bigger issue with startups?
Well, it actually depends on how you're hiring. Depends on the speed at which you're hiring, and depends on the stage of the company. At least whenever a company is at a smaller scale, at that time, what we are looking at is people who believe in the model as well. So there are two kinds of people who would join you. One, who are joining you and share the vision that you have, or at least believe in the vision that you have. And second would be the kinds who are not really, they don't really care about what problem you're solving, what you're doing for the society or for the customer or for whoever. It's just a job for them. And essentially you face a lot of that when basically the company becomes bigger. But when you're small, then what you're looking at is identifying the kind of people who have a similar DNA as yours, are passionate about problem solving themselves. You find such people in other entrepreneurs who haven't really done well in their businesses. So they are an awesome breed of people to actually hire when you're small. And when you become bigger, then at least what is being faced by the startup community right now is are these highs and lows that the media creates. Because the media has a lot of power and can create a lot of negative sentiment whenever they want to, which has been done right now as well.
I'm referring to the current...
Yeah, so the media can actually create a lot of negative sentiment. And when that negative sentiment is created, the journalist doesn't realize that how adversely it can affect the company. I mean, not their operations, not their business, because their business they know is solid, but the team. Because the team then starts getting scared and says that, hey, I mean, let me find another job. So essentially, yeah, it's all about managing, once you become bigger, it's about managing and keeping your employees happy on all fronts. And also, I mean, these random noises that media makes, you can't really do anything about them.
Rishabh, what's your view on this?
So I think Rohit hit the nail on the head by sort of talking about two types of people. One that can align with the vision, can see the bigger picture, you can gel with them. And the second that it's another 9 to 6 job. Typically the person is looking for 15 to 25% increment on their last CTC, and it's a cookie cutter type of mindset. I think there's two, three things we do at Room that from my last 2 years here, I think have been effective. Number one is that we never hire anyone at a big jump from their past compensation. So a lot of now, and that's difficult to execute because a lot of people leave jobs because they want to make more money. So they're like, okay, let me find another job because I can make more money. And typically for that, what we say is that, look, we like you, we'd like to get you on board. Let's start you off at flat or as close to your previous compensation. And let's have a conversation in 90 days or 120 days from now and talk about what was expected off of you and what you've delivered. And if you have delivered on what was expected off of you, then we'll give you that jump that you want. And typically in a startup, early stage company, it's so intense, it's so fast paced, 90, 120 days, you know very clearly if it's going to work out long term or not. Right? It's very simple. Most people who will leave our business when they join will know in like 2 to 3 weeks that this candidate is got a lot of potential and can ride 2-3 years. The second thing is that for the people that are aligned with you, right, who can think like founders, who can think like owners of the company, we try to incentivize them with stock options so that, and tell them that, look, it's not the salary that we're working for, we're trying to create something a lot larger, and that should be reflective in shareholder value. And so we try to give them ESOPs in the company. And then the last thing, which I think you touched upon also, is that, you know, a lot of it is about morale and culture. I think, personally, I think that people are motivated by money, but people like to be aligned to and aspire towards something larger than that, right? A larger vision, a problem you're trying to solve, making an impact, making a dent, right? Stuff like that. So how, and a lot of that comes down to the founding team and how you communicate, what you communicate to make sure everyone's aligned, right? We do town halls twice a week where we just share updates on what we spend our time doing, what partnerships, what our investors are saying, what the press is saying. Because someone who's in a catalog team or in a support team or in an operations team, they also need to know how what work they're doing every single day, morning to night, stacks up to the bigger picture. So I think money is important, but yeah, I think it's something larger that people like to be attracted to.
Okay, thank you so much. Madhu, let's hear your views on this.
So, incidentally, I'm also the national head of HR.
That's the reason the question comes straight to you.
So, see, the biggest thing that we can do in HR is to keep our teams engaged. Okay. So, if your teams are engaged and you're talking, the leadership team is talking to the team at every stage, keeping them abreast with what is happening around, is one of the important factors, as Rishabh mentioned. But another important factor is to create a culture where a clear message is there in the team that performance is one single identifier that will differentiate you from other employees. So if you are able to create a setup where you have a performance culture, you have systems to recognize performance, you have systems to identify bright employees and create a career progression for them, create a path that they can see that next 5 years, next 10 years, next 20 years. In India Mart, we can talk of 20 years because we just completed 20 years. We have today a lot of people with us who have completed more than 10 years, more than 15 years, more than 20 years also. Because some of them have been there with the India Mart before it started. Okay. So, every day we get at least few people who complete 5 years in the organization. And that we have been able to do because we have been able to give them a path to the career. They relate to a higher wealth if they continue to stay within the organization, plus also a purpose, what they are doing in the organization. So it's important to create, ensure that the people don't get burnt out. Okay. So as an organization, you need to keep on innovating. So HR is one area where you need to do a lot of innovation every now and then.
This must be very, very inspiring for our HR students.
Can I quickly add one small thing?
Sure, sure.
So a lot of it is also self-inflicted. So you see a lot of startups giving huge salary hikes, and I mean, the way that Rishabh and their team do it is ideal and perfect. But you've seen a lot of startups these days because there is dearth of talent or because they want to attract talent.
Absolutely.
They're giving stupid level hikes, right? Excuse the phrase. Absolutely. But those kind of raises and hikes have been offered to candidates to join. And hence, obviously, because of the love of money, they go ahead and join. And eventually what that does is that overinflates your overheads. And eventually even the company realizes that, okay, this is not sustainable. So now I need to cut down on my costs. And so we then get a list of, okay, these are the most expensive people who are not really adding too much value. So, hey, why don't you find something else?
One last area before I open the floor for questions. Rohit, you are in a position to answer this pretty well because right now that's your struggle as well. Future of fintech startups compared to food techs.
So fintech startups.
Because you are in both.
Yeah. So food tech currently has a negative air around it, I don't know how many people read about it, but today as well, there was this report that
Grover's Zomato devaluation.
Yeah, Grover's Zomato devaluation, four home chef marketplaces shut down.
Yes.
There are so many. The journalists don't even know how many shut down. Yeah. So, I mean, brings me to the same point, right? Food tech was basically FOMO. That is what caused the negativity around food tech. People investing without really seeing if there is a differentiator. Same is now being talked about fintech. So, I mean, it's very natural for media to talk about something that is getting a lot of hype. So hence, last year it was food tech, this year it will be fintech. So, I mean, when you look at fintech, it's a huge opportunity. Rishabh said so correctly, 1.2 billion people.
Absolutely.
Whatever you do is going to be big. Yeah, it's so easy to attract investors to that, especially foreign investors. Yeah, so there is so much there to fintech as opposed to food tech or what it was perceived. So there was a lot of misconception in people when they were talking about food tech. So food tech eventually just stood at being online food delivery. That was all that was happening. It is just a marketplace which is delivering food from a restaurant to a consumer, and that is what we characterize as food tech. There is no tech involved here. It's purely operations, or it's purely marketing in our case because we were not doing delivery ourselves. So this is not food tech, right? However, when you look at fintech, there is so much possibility. There is microfinance, there is payments, there is loans, there is so much there to fintech. It is so much larger. There are so many problems that you can solve on the financial inclusion side, I mean, on the digitization side, on card acceptance side. There is so much to do. With the huge cash economy that we are, right? Digitization in itself is such a huge opportunity. And hence you see a lot of people trying to solve this problem. So it's very natural. When you see such a huge opportunity, there will be a lot of people who are trying to solve this particular problem. Now again, the problem comes in. Are you actually solving a problem, or are you just spending money to acquire customers? And current scenario of the market and the reason why we chose to be B2B rather than B2C in the fintech space was because, I mean, you look at the environment. You go somewhere, okay, you get these rupees cashback from Paytm, this much cashback from MobiKwik, this much cashback from FreeCharge. So everybody is basically just burning money to acquire the customer. While it is important to incentivize because you want to create a habit, payments is about habit. So hence, it is important to incentivize customers so as to create that habit among them and they get used to using your particular payment method. But that fintech is not just that. It is so much larger, it is so much broader that this is not or cannot be a bubble or cannot burst because there will, yes, payments, I mean B2C payments or wallet space as such, which is riding on such a small marginal benefit of two-factor authentication. I mean, that's all that it is riding on. There's just this marginal benefit. Tomorrow, if RBI brings out a norm and says, okay, cards are allowed to, you can pay by a card without the second factor, what do the wallets do then?
Absolutely. Rohit, you've explained it very well in terms of the difference in value addition. I've had a very lovely discussion with the entire group here. I want students to have their questions to the esteemed panel. Let's start with you. We'll come back to you. You take the mic.
My question is for the entire panel. Anybody can answer. When we talk about women entrepreneurship, we read a lot of interviews, opinions about women entrepreneurs. As a male entrepreneur, I mean, what is your take of the scenario that we have in India currently, considering all the cultural implications that we have?
I think it's pathetic. No, just being really honest. But but I think that, we saw that in your presentation. We've seen that with Startup India. You have to start somewhere, and and it looks like we've started, and now it's in the government's hands, it's in the private sector's hands to build infrastructure in the entrepreneurial ecosystem, so that women feel empowered to take risk, to start businesses, to join early stage companies, to invest. We have a couple of venture funds in this country that are run where the managing partner of the fund, there are ladies, and they're extremely good investors with great reputation. We just need to replicate, and we need a whole lot more of that. And it has to, if it comes from the government level, the start that we've gotten, I think, is great. But I think there's a long way to go. But I still choose to be optimistic about it and say that we've started, and you had to start somewhere.
I'll add to that. I think, at the risk of bearing the brunt of our chairperson here and the other women, I think the women are to blame, right? So they need to come up and decide that they want to do this and do it. Now, when you look at the room right now, you see more men than you see women, right? And that is what is being replicated in the startup scenario, that hence you see more male founders than female founders. We know of some very successful female VCs. We know of some successful female entrepreneurs, but I think it's more about women getting out of that mindset that what would the guys think, or what would the VC think, that I need to get married, or I need to do this or that, because it's anyways not going to be a one founder team that anybody is going to be investing on. You anyways need to build a team. So why can't a woman be a CEO, or why can't a woman be a founder? I think it's more that the women need to get out of that shell and believe in themselves first, and that's only when the VCs would, or the market would, start believing in you.
Very well said.
My question is to Rohit and to the entire panel.
Loudspeaker is not on.
Yeah, it's working.
We have food tech, for instance, as you said. While food transmission losses are the highest, one of the highest, I think, probably the highest in the world. Why haven't the entrepreneurs looked at creating, while there are people who are investing money into warehousing in India, for instance, why haven't the VCs not jumped onto it? Why haven't they looked at many other aspects? But what I find is the younger generation in India looking at creating an app primarily for travel, little bit on entertainment, more on taxis, and not looking at the entire. So it's not just the younger generation, it's also due to the fact that the whole community of entrepreneurs and the VC combined is not looking at actual opportunities, while the whole game is about valuation, not looking at entrepreneurship bottom line. I'm sorry, I'm not making any comments on any individual, but...
No, absolutely. I think I'll tell you where there are two sides to this. One is I think that a lot of the people want to get into entrepreneurship or want to start a company seeing that somebody else is making a lot of money, right? So hence, they're just pure lazy and are copying or making or creating or selecting a business model which is very easy to do, right? So hence, yeah, creating an app is so easy to do, right? You get a company, you tell them, hey, I have this idea, you pay them like 5 lakh rupees or 3 lakh rupees or 2 lakh rupees. If you have a friend in IIT, he'll do it for free. So it's so easy to do. So hence they're doing that. It's not that the VCs don't want to invest. VCs are very keen and are very actively looking at real food tech, where you're actually adding value to the supply chain. I've had conversations with large private equity funds who are actively looking at this space, but they just don't find people who are doing it because it's such a dirty job. It's so difficult to do, and hence you find lesser people. However, now coming to the flip side of it, it's not, while I've said that people are trying to do the easy stuff, it's also a lot to do with the capital. Why do you see so many tech entrepreneurs, or why do you see so many tech startups, is also because it is less capital intensive than a brick and mortar business. if you were to do a brick and mortar business which you wanted to reach a particular scale, you would have to invest so much more capital in there. And I mean, so yes, I mean, so it's so much more difficult to do in terms of raising capital or having access to capital. So with less access to capital, what's easy to do? Create an app. You want to measure your sleep? There's an app for that. I mean, so.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Very well.
I think I'll add a little bit to it. I think as rightly said by him, it's the app is the easiest to replicate. And I think in terms of agility, these are the most agile of enterprises. You have a warehouse, you are stuck with the mortar building. So if you can't get out very easily. So that I think is an inherent advantage, where it's a fixed cost industry. Whereas in these apps, there is no fixed cost involved. So it's easy to replicate.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, my name is Nehit Goyal. My question is to Mr. Malik. Do you think that accelerators are really doing their bit in India to reach out to colleges or to students? Because we don't see any accelerator or famous accelerator in Delhi. We have only T-Hub and CII Ahmedabad, which we have heard of. So.
No, good question. So I think different people have tried different approaches towards building an accelerator. Making it an incubation cell in an educational institute is one. A large corporate like Times Group or Hindustan Times setting up T-Labs and saying this is my accelerator is another. GSF was a third, where I was part of the founding team, where we were not attached to any corporate. We did not have any loyalty to a fund or corporate or an education institute. It was an entrepreneurial approach to building an accelerator. And obviously I'm biased here, but like I think we did a fairly good job in building an ecosystem. So we started out in 2011, and today we have done 52 companies, right? Of which 37 are still alive, right? So, and in a startup, if you're alive, then I think that's a mark of success. If you haven't shut down in 2-3 years, right? That's already a good start. And there are about 150 founders in the GSF alumni, right? So we have an email group between us, all the founders, and 150 founders, and another about 150 people who have worked as entrepreneurs in residence with these companies, and about 200-300 mentors that have come in at different times. And arguably, I think this is the biggest alumni association in the startup community in India, right? So we drop one email and say, hey, looking for a designer to do this, or looking to do this, and within seconds, there is somebody who has had the same problem, the same issue, and will respond, will make an introduction, will connect. So I think there's a long way to go, because it's a 3-4-year-old business in this country, but I think a few people have done a decent job. I think one important thing is the structure of the accelerator. So a lot of people will say, oh, we don't invest money, but we'll give you workspace and we'll take some equity in your company, right? Some say, oh, we only accept you if you take money. So I think the incentive part is important to figure out. A large corporate wants to do it because they're like, oh, if I find a nice startup that can add some value, I'll just acquire it straight into my business. And for an entrepreneur, that's not a good outcome, right? You want to build something that's large and valuable over time. Not that the moment you become even remotely significant, you get bought in because Times Group, I'm not trying to be negative about Times Group here, by the way, but the reason behind it is important. So at GSF, we took an entrepreneurial independent view where we said we will only work with teams that we can invest money in. And yes, we will give you mentorship. Yes, we will give you, cloud hosting and workspace and all of that. But we try to take just an investor-driven view towards it, which we'll see in the long term if it was the right one or not.
Can I add to that as well? I've spoken a lot, but I'll just add to that as well. I'll also bring in the Startup India angle to it, because Startup India, the government initiative, has two parts to it, right? One is the regulatory part and one is the funding part. Where regulatory part is extremely important, because it makes life easy for startups, or it makes life easy for entrepreneurs to do business. A lot of emphasis has been given on the fiscal part of it. that, oh, the government should put in money or is putting in money, or where is that money? Similarly, I mean, they're setting up Atal incubation centers, and I mean, so these incubators, so much importance is given to incubators, accelerators. Why don't we have them, et cetera, et cetera? I ask, why do you need them? I mean, if you're creating a good business, or if you've thought it through, you guys are business students, right? You know what it is. You make some money, or you get some revenue, then you have your costs, and then you have your profits. It's such simple mathematics. So if you are doing something, and if you've put it down on paper, if you've made an Excel sheet, and you've seen that, okay, this is the amount of money that I will make after spending this amount of money, and this is positive, hey, this business is worth doing, then do that business. And then you will put in, go organic, right? I mean, then you'll make some money, you put it back into the business, it will grow. What's the need for having external funds? I think it's become about fashion these days. Glamour, yes, absolutely, very, very well put. I mentored a team, a startup from, I mean, so they were juniors from my college. I didn't know them, but they approached me, and I was mentoring them, and I was helping them do fundraising. They got around. They still have a very good business, 3 years into the business, profitable. Then they came back to me and said, hey, no, now we want to do a B2C business. It was a B2B business earlier. And I was like, but why? You guys are doing so well. And no, it's more fun. And I was like, dude, you want the glamour. You want to be in the newspapers. You want to be known everywhere that, okay, this is who you are, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, if you want to do business, you do it for the right reasons. And if you're doing it for the right reasons, you don't need an incubator or an accelerator. I don't understand what's the whole deal with getting the government involved. No, we want money from the government. Why should the government pay you? The government should provide you a good regulatory environment, which makes it easy for you to do business. And that's it. Why do we need money? The taxpayers' money coming to us, it's actually the taxpayers' money. You or your counterparts or your parents are basically paying taxes, which money is being used to pump into startups. Why? I mean, I don't want to invest in any startups through the government. If I were to invest in startups, I would do it on my own. Sorry for being like this. Thank you.
My name is Samyak, and my question is for the panel is, we talked about solving a problem and providing a utility to the users. And also we talked about that there's a sense of distrust in Indian consumers. They would like pay zero fee, then go for a pay. So my question is, how do we join these dots? And is providing utility not enough for a new startup?
I made that point, so I'll answer it. I'm sorry for hogging the mic. So unfortunately, for our consumer, we are a very value-driven country. And any time that we see somebody else is providing 50 rupees more discount, we will shift there. I wanted to say 5 rupees, but I didn't want to sound too petty. But essentially, unfortunately, we are a very, very value-driven country, right? Convenience is something that we don't, when I say we, I mean we Indian consumer don't really seem to be paying for. However, there are both kinds, you know. So it's just about who you're targeting. So if you're targeting the masses, obviously the masses don't have too much money. So obviously they'll try to save money wherever they can. And unfortunately, because of that, hence is e-commerce. That e-commerce is now known for, or basically what e-commerce stands for is cheaper products, right? So anytime that you see that it's the same price at an offline retail store or on e-commerce, you'd say, hey, why should I go to e-commerce, right? So unfortunately, there's a large segment of society which is very, very value-driven. So hence, you obviously have to create that value. So which will mean that there is a hurdle, right? Which Madhup said earlier, that now you have to cross that hurdle. Now, to be able to provide that value to that consumer, how do you do that such that you're still profitable? And you don't burn your pockets and you still do it profitably. So that's a problem that you need to solve. Unfortunately, convenience is not really something that an Indian consumer would go for. However, I will stand corrected with the whole cab model, because the cab model actually created the convenience because there was a huge hole finding an auto, no cabs in Delhi or other places, right? Super expensive cabs. So they provided supply where there was a possibility, and hence it's such a huge industry right now. So you really have to find that real value or that real problem that you want to solve, and then people will pay for it.
I'd like to add to that. So India Mart today is one of the large examples which is free to use for both buyers and sellers even today. And we are the largest online B2B platform, and we are making more than 300 crore rupees a year in terms of revenue. Okay. And we still continue to stay free. Okay. So being free doesn't mean that you can't make money. That's the first thing. Okay. So service is something that the value, if there is a value, you'll definitely find people who are willing to pay you for that value delivery. Okay. So you need to first ensure and create a real value in your product. If the value is there, a large number of people will get attracted to your platform because it is free. And once they come to your platform, then you can show them that there is more value to be taken here. And if you pay a little bit more, you'll get more value out of it. Okay. So that's how. And the classical example is Google, okay, Facebook. It's all free. Okay. Still, they make tons and tons of money. Okay.
Sorry. Your user and your payer could be two different people. A lot of times, we get confused into thinking that, okay, our user has to pay us. That's not necessarily true. Google and Facebook, you guys are users, payers are businesses. They are paying them for their advertisements, et cetera, et cetera. And this is something that I always talk about in every talk that I've been to, that in my first company, I did not realize that. So my first company was a B2B company where I was providing value to the employees of the employer, but my payer was the employer. So he didn't really care about me giving this value to the employee, because he wanted to look at his costs and he didn't want to increase employee benefit costs. So he didn't want to pay me. So hence you need to really, really differentiate the two, as your user may not be your payer.
Thank you so much. In fact, I want to thank the entire panel for a wonderful discussion we had. In fact, I must say the room is flooded with optimism right now. I just want to add my bit of optimism here. I'm sure all of you are aware that Apple and Google were student projects. So I keep looking for such student projects, and I'm sure to find some someday. Thank you so much.
On behalf of everyone present here, I express my sincere gratitude to Mr. Madhup Agrawal, Mr. Rishabh Malik, Mr. Rohit Chadda, and Mr. Samirendra Chatterjee for taking out time from their busy schedule and sharing their thought-provoking insights with all of us. Thank you for the valuable knowledge you have imparted to us through this discussion. I'm sure that we shall all keep in our minds that all that you have said and imbibe this knowledge into our decisions as future managers. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Professor Supriya Kalla for consenting to be the moderator for the session and conducting the session in a highly coordinated manner.
Let's have a precise look at the key takeaways of the session. Mr. Rishabh Malik talked about the 3 things that an investor sees in a startup: the team of people, why are they doing it, and the technology. And Mr. Rohit Chadda pointed out that finding the believers is the biggest challenge faced by any startup. And he also pointed out that with persistence, one can overcome anything. Professor Supriya Kalla gave the audience a wake-up call when she mentioned that the view of startups is not as romantic as it seems to be. Mr. Madhu pointed out the importance of changing your idea and pivoting it towards the hurdle when the problem comes, and this process is a necessity. And he also pointed out that the leveraging of network of a startup is a key factor. Mr. Chatterjee reminded us of the fact that we should never underestimate an adversary. And he also encouraged the audience to take a chance and encouraged us by saying that we'll not lose our shirt if we fail.
Now, I would request the esteemed panelists to sign the Conventus mark with a small message. Now, we would like to present the distinguished speakers for the session with a small token of our appreciation. Mr. Madhu Agrawal, sir, kindly accept this memento as a gesture of our appreciation. We request Professor D.K. Batra to do the honors. Mr. Rishabh Malik, sir, we were honored to have you with us today. Kindly accept the memento as a gesture of our appreciation. We request Professor Supriya Kalla to do the honors. Mr. Rohit Chatta, it was a privilege listening to you, sir. Kindly accept this memento as a gesture of our appreciation. We request Professor D.K. Batra to do the honors. Mr. Samirendra Chatterjee, we were honored to have you here with us today. Kindly accept the memento as a gesture of our appreciation. We request Professor Supriya Kalla to do the honors. Professor Supriya Kalla, we were honored to have you here with us today. Kindly accept this memento as a token of our appreciation. We request Nana Maheshwari to do the honors.
Ladies and gentlemen, with this, we conclude the session of Entrepreneurship Summit. We are sure that the session has been very enlightening for each and every one of you present here. On behalf of the Entrepreneurship Cell of IMI, I would like to take this opportunity to commend all the guests, participants, speakers, professors, students, and the staff of IMI for making the event an unparalleled success, as well as the media persons for covering it. We would also like to thank our sponsors for helping us in the endeavor. Our sponsors are co-sponsor RP Sanjeev Goenka Group, powered by Panasonic Smartphones. Our partners include Nutrition Partner India Gate, Food partner, Pat and Harry and Burger.in. Beverage partner, Hector Beverages. And website partner, Acuity Software Private Limited.
Our other sponsors include American Express, Cadby, Respite Holdings, Safe Pocket Money, Allahabad Bank, Punjab National Bank, Pizza Hut, and Uber. Thank you all. We request guests to proceed to the lobby area for tea. The students are requested to please stay back.